That's another classic by the Royal Guardsmen. I really like that story. It's completely fictitious, of course, but we all know the Red Baron didn't force Snoopy down behind the lines. Let's go talk to Tom in Ottawa. Tom, what do you think? Who'd have won that dogfight had they continued?
Well, if it had been today's oil and gas industry, definitely we would have lost. We would have lost, and the reason is we were afraid of a fight. And that's the whole point I called for, is that when I listen to people talk about Agenda 21, it really tells me that one of the reasons the enviros win on these things is because they're not out for peace. They're out for an objective, and they will fight for that objective even if it gets nasty. Whereas many of their opponents, people on our side, are trying for peace. If you think about it, a cow has peace until it's led to the slaughterhouse.
Yeah, and 3 pigs, too.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if your goal is peace at all costs, then eventually whoever, is prepared to fight you will win. And that's exactly what happened in Ontario. When you look at the coal industry here, it's been completely destroyed. And, of course, within a year or two, we'll have no coal-fired electricity. And that's because they wouldn't fight against the main thing that was killing their industry, and that was the climate scare. They wouldn't simply say, come on, that's ridiculous. We don't control the Earth's climate, so you can't close our industry just because of some fictitious cause. But they wouldn't fight. The other night I was listening to the head of the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers in an interview about the Enbridge pipeline, that's going to the West Coast. And they brought up the issue of climate change. And instead of saying, oh, well, the idea that we cause dangerous climate change, highly skeptical and probably unlikely. Instead of saying that, they started saying, well, it's not as bad as China, and as we've discussed in the past, that's a terrible argument. It's like saying, I don't drink as much as my neighbor, so getting drunk isn't so bad.
Right.
But I think that on many, many of these issues, look at the United States. They had a big coal rally to support coal in Washington, D.C., and they brought thousands of workers in from all over the United States. They spent a fortune, putting them up, transferring, all the things required to have a massive protest. And they didn't once bring up the fact that the coal industry is being killed because of a myth. And the myth is, of course, that coal causes climate change. They wouldn't bring it up. Now, why wouldn't they bring it up? I dug into that quite a lot. The reason they won't bring it up is because they didn't want to have big conflict with the enviros. So they had a politically correct coal rally that completely fails. And so then you have to say, well, why would they not bring up the major argument that's destroying their industry when that argument is nonsense? And that's because they're seeking peace. They're looking for, for the individuals involved, they don't want to have conflict. But the truth is, if somebody's trying to kill you and you look for peace, you're dead.
Well,
you have to fight.
Absolutely. And the thing people don't realize is life is nothing but a series of battles from beginning to end. The question is, do you take it seriously or not?
Yeah. And I think what's happening is, whether it's the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers or whether it's the coal industry or the people that are being hurt by Agenda 21, they're too afraid to actually get in a full-blown battle. And, I know it's not the time of year to be calling for fighting because this is peace on earth, etc.
Right.
But I think that this is part of the Christian mindset, that you're seeking peace. But, I don't think that really holds true. Christ went into the tabernacle and he threw out those people. He didn't talk to them nicely and say, well, would you please leave? There's times when you have to fight, and you have to fight for good causes, and you have to fight aggressively with intelligence and good strategy. But unfortunately, there's too many people on our side who are not prepared to fight. Look at Stephen Harper. He's accepted the climate scare, even though he knows it's a lie. And so they're wasting billions of Canadian tax dollars on something they know full well is a lie because they're not prepared to fight. And that's where you lose. That's where our society goes down the drain. If people are more concerned about peace than they are about having a good life and doing what's right.
Reminds me of that old saying about, when they came for so-and-so, I said nothing. And then when they came for somebody else, I said nothing. And then when they came for me, there was no one left to say anything.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
It's exactly that mindset.
Well, and it's so sad because you get the natural gas people saying, oh, well, our product puts out less greenhouse gases than coal, so, switch over to natural gas. Until natural gas is left standing and coal's dead, then they go after natural gas.
Right.
So you lose your potential allies by letting them die. I think it was Churchill that said, it's fine to feed a crocodile as long as you're not next on the list,
Something like that, yeah. As a matter of fact, that was the next quote. Socialism is feeding your neighbors to the crocodiles, hoping he'll eat you last.
Yeah. And we're seeing this really stupid strategy. The conservatives and others in our society who are standing generally for good things are going to have to start really fighting. They're going to have to start actually standing up for something instead of just doing what's easy.
Tom, appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.